I'll be in the City of Angels later today. All-day hearing by a federal district court judge by the name of David Carter, who's something of a legend in California. David Carter is a Bronze Star recipient for the Battle of Quezon. I've known him for decades. He was friends of my old friend, Colonel Bill Barber. And I've been thrown out of his courthouse once. In good humor. He just tossed me out of my butt because he didn't like my case. But Judge Carter is known for being the most direct judge on the district court in Southern California. There are lots of good judges out here, but he's a hanging judge if you're on the wrong side of the law. And the city of L.A. and the county of L.A., which between them have between 65 and 75,000 people living on the streets, asked him to take over a federal civil rights lawsuit brought by Alliance for Human Rights versus the county and the city, which he did. And he's been sort of mediating it since March of last year. It's been 10 months. And he blew a gasket last weekend after the deluge in L.A. almost washed away. I mean, he went downtown in the middle of this thing. And I read his order. And he issued an order, and he summoned everyone to Skid Row today. And he wrote this order, which I read to you on the air. It says basically, I've read Brown v. Board, and I've read Brown v. Plata, and I want you to brief me on what the extent of my equitable authority is for structural equitable relief. Now, that's law talk, you geeks out there. That means I am Zeus, and I have lightning bolts. Where do I throw them? How many do I have? What can I do with them? He's inviting the parties and inviting not-for-profits. So I wouldn't miss this hearing for the world. This is the most important hearing on homelessness in 20 years. Because a judge is threatening you to invoke the equitable authority of the federal courts to deal with a systemic failure of government. Now, I want to tell you, want to talk systemic failure of government, take a look at the homeless situation in L.A., in San Francisco, in Seattle, in Washington, D.C., in every major urban center in America, but mostly on those where the climate is temperate. There are tens of thousands of people who roughly fall into three categories: the addicted, the mentally ill, and the economically shattered. There are some subgroups. But those are the big three. And everybody, I dealt with homelessness for 17 years on a commission in Orange County. When I lived in Orange County before I moved to D.C., for 17 years, I served on the Orange County Children and Families Commission. One of 9 commissioners. We gave away between $20 and $40 million a year, depending on how much cigarette tax money we got. That was supposed to go to benefit children 0 to 5. And we did our best, and I brought to it the common sense of a conservative. You know, I wanted to see results. I didn't want to buy a lot of bureaucracy. I didn't want any studies. I hired the not-for-profit equivalent of McKinsey and Company or Bain Consulting to look at what we did. And for 17 years, we took aim at the children of Orange County, California, who were least likely to arrive at the age of 5, healthy and ready to learn. That was the target. That was the state initiative. And so we spent, a couple of billion bucks. But that's not much money when you're dealing with that many kids. Well, today, this judge has said, hey, bring me your proposals. What can I do? And I note, by the way, for the members of Congress who are driving in and listening right now, though very few of them are up at 6 a.m., some of them listen on podcasts, you're passing billions and trillions of dollars of COVID relief in the Biden bill. Well, the community hit hardest by the virus are the homeless because they have the least opportunity not to catch the disease. Like the poorest countries in South America have the highest fatality rates, recorded and unrecorded. And so the homeless are like ground zero for the spread of the virus. And by the way, it doesn't stop with the homeless. If it's a Petri dish for the virus, it spreads out through every community in which they live. And so what do you do with the homeless? Now, again, common sense conservative. You're about to spend $2 trillion, give billions and billions to cities with homeless problems and tell them to buy houses and apartments for the homeless, and then let the faith-based groups that know what to do with these folks and treat them like the children of God that they are, let them rehab them. Do not give the money to bureaucracy. The bureaucracies get bigger and the problem doesn't get solved. And I mean, LA is the poster child for big bureaucracies and little relief. I think they got $1.2 billion last year. Big bureaucracy, little relief, more homeless. And I've seen some elected officials say it's not our fault homeless people move here. Yeah, it is. It's your fault. You don't have a plan. You've got the worst bureaucracy in the country, as far as I know. Seattle, Michael Medved, my old friend Michael Medved would argue that Seattle had a worse bureaucracy. But look, San Francisco, it's losing its tourism trade. Overrun. And I don't mean overrun by outsiders. I mean the combination of many, many circumstances. And again, it's mental illness, addiction, either to drugs or alcohol, and economic collapse that put people on the streets and living in their cars, and it's overwhelmed the system. So if you're going to spend all that trillions of dollars, at least tackle two problems. Tackle the COVID and tackle homelessness, because they're interrelated. And it's not that hard. It really is. It's just not that hard. Buy housing units. Don't build them, buy them. People are out there selling apartment buildings every day. Spread everybody out throughout the city and then assign a building per not-for-profit or church and say, you take care of those people on your dime. Maybe you let, by the way, you let anyone apply to do that. There are lots of secular groups that do that as well. But the world's best group is the Salvation Army, nationally. As the New Republic said, they are the greatest anti-poverty organization that the United States has ever seen. The Army knows how to deal with people who are down and out. Then there are people like the Union Rescue Mission. Dwayne, didn't you used to broadcast from Union Rescue Mission?
Yeah, sure did. Did three a year when I did Christian radio back in 95.
That's back when Dwayne was 40, in 1995. Sure. How does the Union Rescue Mission work?
They basically start with meals. If people are hungry enough, they'll walk through the door and they'll say, "I'm hungry, can you feed me?" And they will feed them. And then once they feed them, they start talking to them about, okay, so now what do we do? Do you need a place to stay tonight? And then they start working with them and saying, okay, you don't have to do this every night. There's ways around this, and they start working on them. They just start.
They don't start preaching at them. No, they shower them, they feed them, and they begin to talk about finding transitional housing, and then they talk about getting a job, and they use their network. There are groups that know what to do, and the Salvation Army, the Union Rescue Mission, LA Women's Center, they're all out there. So if you're going to pass $2 trillion, imagine if you gave $10 billion of that. That's not a lot, all right? $10 billion to LA, demo project. Buy housing. Don't rent it, because that money runs out. Don't spend all your money. Use the interest. That's what my Prop 10 commission did. We didn't spend any money for 3 years. We built up enough that we would never have to change. This was all conservative run. And that's why I did it for 17 years. Build up a foundation, capital. Use the interest from the capital to supplement the annual appropriation. Make sure you have steady services. Don't start what you can't continue. You buy the capital stock and you serve the people in the capital stock. Eventually, by the way, if you go full Thatcher, you let the people in the capital stock buy that back from you and you buy more capital stock. It's not rocket science. It's easy. I mean, it's hard as heck, and the people who do it are saints. And I also know, I can't speak for other faith traditions, it is an obligation of Christians to do this. To care for the homeless, the naked, the hungry, the poor, the widow, and the orphan. It's an obligation. There isn't any actual wiggle room. But I don't know about any of the other religious traditions, but I know a federal judge is looking at this today, and I wouldn't miss this for the world. Because when they are in equity, when they sit in equity, when the King's Court sits in equity, well, good things happen. Good things happen.